Hey everyone, it's Allison. Today I am going to be talking to a really special guest. We are going to be having a awesome conversation about healing using manifestation. Manifestation is a huge part of creating the life that you want, and it's so important to use this as part of your healing journey. My guest, Jennifer Blanchard, is an author of the book Quantum Leap Your Life plus 15 other books. She is going to give us some great information, some amazing tips, and how to use manifestation as a tool to help you heal. And I want to give you as much information as I can so that you can use whatever it is that you align with for your healing journey. So you're going to want to stay tuned as we dive right in to manifestation for healing. Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagny. So let's get started. All right, thank you guys for joining me today. I have a very special guest here, and I'm really excited because I get to have a discussion about one of my favorite things, which is manifestation. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Jennifer, let you introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this full circle moment with you because, I had the history of being the developmental editor on your book. So that was really cool. So I am a multi-passionate creative. I'm the author of 16 books and more coming, mix of fiction and nonfiction. It's just sort of something that I always knew I would write fiction. And then I went to college for journalism and just started to kind of fall in love with the idea of telling stories about life and things I've been learning. And it took a while to get to the place where I was comfortable enough to share that stuff, but I'm happy to be doing that now. And I actually just had a new book come out a few weeks ago. So that's a little bit about me.
16 books. That is a lot, a lot of writing, and that is amazing. You do coaching as well, right?
Yeah, so I don't do it in the same capacity that I used to, but yeah, I do do some coaching here and there when I feel that it's aligned to do so.
Right.
But my main focus is definitely books right now.
Good. Well, and I want to hear about your new book because I read it, and Quantum Leap Your Life is an amazing book, and it's a really easy read, which is nice. And I love that because a lot of times the books that you read about manifestation are complex and they don't really tell you how. And that's what I love about your book is that it's instructional and it tells you like how you can do these things and actually implement it in your life. So I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about how your life brought you to this point where you started in the manifestation arena?
Yeah. Well, not unlike most people, I started with The Secret. So back in 2008, I watched that movie. My friend actually sent it to me for my birthday the year before that, and I hadn't watched it. So then New Year's had come, and I thought, start the year off, watch this movie that she sent me. And I just fell in love with the idea that we could use our minds to create our realities. And so I started to play around with a lot of stuff. Wasn't really seriously involved in anything until several years later. So I started to have a daily mindset practice. Actually, funnily enough, this is the 1-year anniversary of starting my daily mindset practice back in 2015. And it was something that I just committed to because it helped me and it worked really well for me. And then as I kind of went deeper into the mindset space, I started to realize the connection between the manifestation and the mindset. And so I started to bring more of that into my life. But I would say the biggest thing that got me into this was in 2019, the very beginning of 2019, I manifested a divorce. And I did this by previous months before that, making the decision to surrender the outcome of my marriage to the universe and ask the universe to make the decision for me. If this was the right relationship, trust that it would shift in some way and turn into the relationship I wanted. And if it wasn't, have him break up with me. So I knew that was the right result. And I didn't know at the time I didn't know at the time I was going to end up in a divorce. It just was sort of one of those things where I said, well, if if the universe is always supporting us and if we get to have what we want, then I can delegate this and just trust that something will work out if I just do my part. And that's exactly what happened. And once the divorce went down, and in such a peaceful, amicable way that I thought there's just, it felt like divine intervention in like the most magical way, that I just realized I have a process that I've been using my entire life to make things happen. I just didn't know what to call it at the time. And so really clear on what that process was. And that's where I wrote my first manifestation book a couple of years later. So I was kind of working on using the process for myself in different areas. And once I got some examples in my own life that I felt I really had embodied the process, it was time to write about it. And so that's where the first version of that book came from, F the How, and then the new book, Quantum Leap Your Life.
Wow. So how would you describe manifestation for people who don't really know what it is? Because I'm familiar with it. I know you're really, really familiar with it, but there are a lot of people out there who don't really have a clear understanding of what that is. How would you describe it or explain it?
So I explain manifestation as using your internal state, your mindset and your emotional state, and your beliefs and the sort of the internal things to create the outcomes that you desire to have. And this could be an actual physical outcome, like I'm going to receive this truck that I want, or this house that I want to buy, or whatever it is. Or it could be just an internal state of, I want to manifest feeling really proud of myself. I want to manifest feeling really happy, or whatever, you're kind of going for. And so it's really about knowing that the inside creates the outside. So it's cause inside, affect outside. And we've been taught that it's the opposite. And so manifestation to me is really about that more than anything else.
Right. Well, yeah. And I completely understand that, because a lot of the work that I do is subconscious healing, right? So we get into the subconscious mind to uncover the beliefs and uncover the thoughts that are running sort of on autopilot. And I know you're really familiar with the different parts of the brain and how the brain works and all of that. And so that's why I thought this would be a really interesting conversation for people, because how can we use the power of manifestation to help us heal, help us move forward? Because a lot of us are stuck in these really toxic aftermaths of relationships, and we don't feel like that we can move forward. We don't feel like that we're ever going to find love again. We don't feel like that we can do the things that we need to do to heal. So what would you say to people like that, who have that sort of limiting mindset as far as using manifestation, using the power of manifestation to help them overcome some of these hurdles?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, first of all, trauma is real, and don't ever try to downplay it or ignore it or think that like you just, because I did that in my own life for something that happened early on. And I just had that sort of over the last like year and a half, it started just coming up. Mm-hmm. And I ended up working with a therapist, and it really helped me to release a lot of the old beliefs that I had about that situation and about what had happened and all the things, as well as things that I had created beliefs about myself because of the things that had happened. So, so trauma is real, and just do whatever you need to do to process that, no matter what. Just don't think you can just manifest your way out of certain things, because I think there's both aspects, right? There's the physical, this is what's happening right now, and we still have to deal with that stuff. Right. Not just always thinking about the future or thinking about the things we want to change, but just really embracing what is right now, working with it however we can, and of course knowing that we're creating something else for ourselves as well. So so that's what I would say first.
Okay.
More than anything else is that making sure you're doing that. And then after that, it's really thinking about, who do you want to be now? Like, what identities do you want to have for yourself now? How do you want to see yourself? What do you want to become? What version of yourself would you love to live and experience? And I would then look at that aspect and say, okay, well, how can I be more of that person? Mm-hmm. And there may be, things you might have to physically do, or it could just be choices you're making to set boundaries or to put certain standards in place that now change the type of person you're going to date, or change the way you're going to treat yourself, or the things that you're going to say to yourself or believe about yourself. So it's kind of, I think, a combination of both of those things.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%, because one, we have to acknowledge the things that happen to us, and we have to understand where that trauma comes from and process those emotions. And then when people are to the point where they're like, okay, I'm ready for that new person to come to light. I'm ready for that. And actually, I probably shouldn't say new person. I should probably say that true person, like the person that's inside of us, that's always been there, that just got covered up by the muck and the icky beliefs, right? But creating that vision of who we want to see, who we want to be. Is that person strong? Is that person powerful? Is that person a good boundary setter? How do they show up in the world? So I love how you talk about doing these things, like actually acting as if. And can you talk a little bit about that and explain about acting as if and how that could help people embody that vision that they really want to achieve?
Yeah. So in my mind, acting as if really entails 4 parts. It's acting as if in your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your actions. And all of these things work together. So it's looking at, if I was already that version of myself, and really you might have to look at, well, what is this vision that I'm seeing for who I want to be? You know, what does she look like? What does she act like? How does she spend her time? It's really looking at all the aspects of that. And then how can I start to embody some of that now? Well, how would that version of me think? How would that version of me believe? How would she feel? And what actions would she take or not take? You know, because there may be things you're doing that you're like, actually, that version of me wouldn't do that. Like a big one for me was checking social media first thing in the morning when I first woke up. It was like just a habit that I had, but I realized the, successful author version of me didn't do that, because a lot of times we can get derailed in our day by the things we see online, like bad news happens or something negative or a comment that someone left that you just don't really like. And it just makes you feel bad. And then you start your day like that. And so it was, well, the version of me who has the success that I want wouldn't start her day that way. And so it was removing certain things that I was, doing that were not that version of me. So it acting as if by taking things away. So it's really looking at kind of all the aspects of who that person would be, and then doing as much as you can now. And it doesn't mean you have to do everything. There may be some things that are out of reach right now. Like if you say, well, that version of me would be self-employed, but right now I have a job. That doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It just means that that's what's coming for you, and what can you do to set yourself up to become that eventually, and kind of just acting as if in whatever ways you can, like little things that you might do. Like I'm going to clear my desk out so that only the things that my company owns are at the desk. I don't have personal items, so that I'm sort of separating myself from this job. And, I'm acting as if I'm this person by dressing a certain way, or I'm going to, maybe you're going to change your hair or the way you do your makeup so that you feel that you look more like that version of yourself. There's always a lot of different things that you can do, big or small things. Again, it doesn't always have to be something massive. Like I always say, if you want to manifest more money, it's simple things like, well, get yourself a better wallet. Because if you had more money, you would have a really pretty wallet, most likely, or a wallet that made you feel really good to put your money into, So it's like simple little things that you're acting as if this is now happening for me. And the more you can do that, the more you become that version of yourself internally, because you start to feel as if you're that person. Right. And once you feel it, you just automatically take the actions without even really having to kind of force yourself to, right. We think change means we have to figure out a bunch of to-dos, and then we have to force ourselves to do all this stuff we don't want to do. But really, if you just do the small things starting off, you feel like that person, and then the actions just sort of naturally start to happen, because you think, oh, well, like for example, fitness, that's a big one for a lot of people. Like I want to be a more fit person. But getting yourself to exercise consistently can be a challenge, because especially if you haven't been doing that your whole life, it can be a challenge to make it a habit. So it's creating the internal state first of, well, act as if I'm that person internally. So I'm going to choose every day to ask myself, if I was the fit version of myself, what would I wear? How would I eat? What would I do today? How would my energy be? Like, would I take a nap or would I not? Like looking at all the little things. And as you start to do that, fitness, the exercising part just naturally starts to become a progression of that, because you already feel this way. And you're like, well, the fit version of me would work out, so I'm going to go work out now. And it just becomes this kind of easy way of making the changes without feeling like you're forcing yourself to do anything.
Right. Yeah. And I always say to my clients, and I try to explain it, that our thoughts come first, right? And then our emotions come from our thoughts, and then our behaviors come from that. So if you're trying to change a behavior or a habit, you have to first get to the thoughts around that. So like what you're talking about is, how would this person act, and what would this person do, and how would this person show up in the world? That's how you start to change because what you said, which I really like, is about how the intentions of what the energy that you're putting into it and the emotion is really where it's at, because you can do all the things that you want and say, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But if you have no intention or no emotion behind it, it's never going to stick. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of that? Because I know you talk about it in some of your TikTok videos and some of your podcast episodes about how intention and, kind of bringing in that emotion, tying it to like the habits or the behaviors that you're doing, why that's so important.
Yeah. So intention to me just means that you're doing something purposefully, right? So you're not just saying, I'm going to just eat dinner tonight, but I'm going to eat dinner with the intention that this is a meal that moves me forward in being the person that I want to be. And so you're looking at, and when you look at it from that way, what you eat changes, right? Because, and again, this is just an example, because now you're looking at, I'm not just eating dinner, which could be any old thing. It could be takeout, it could be, fast food. Or if I'm eating with the intention to be a fitter person or a healthier person, and this is who I'm becoming, you're going to decide your meal based on that, so it's very much a purposeful way of looking at all of the things that you're doing in your life. And as far as like creating the emotional state that goes with it, for me, that's really, I always say feeling good is the point and the path. That's like my saying. I actually tattooed it on my arm. This is the thing that changed my life back in like when I manifested the divorce. And the reason I say it is because feeling good is the point, right? It's the reason we want all the changes that we want. It's the reason we want to be that version of ourselves or have the things that we want to have. That's the reason, because we believe that having those things is going to feel good or it's going to feel a certain way. Well, feeling good is also the path to get there. So this is not to say you can't feel bad sometimes. Like we're all going to feel our moments. We're human. That's just how it is. And avoiding your emotions never helps you. So definitely feel what you're feeling. But then it's, can you not stay in it? Is really the thing, right? So you're feeling the negative state, and can I choose to feel it and then get myself out of it? Intentionally choosing to, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to choose to change how I'm feeling. And then you can do it in a couple of ways. So one is either just feeling good in general. So like what makes me feel good in general, and doing more of that stuff, finding ways to add more of that stuff into your daily life. And it can be really simple things. Like it feels really good to drink a full glass of water when I wake up in the morning. So I'm going to do that every morning. Or it feels really good to get my nails done or to style my hair a certain way or whatever it is. So it can be things like that, really simple things that you can incorporate into your day. The other thing is you could think about what specific emotions you would feel as that version of yourself. I might feel abundant. I might feel creative. I might feel joyful. And then look at, well, where in my life do I already feel those emotions? And you can sort of indulge more in those things. And then how can I also create more of those emotions by looking at, well, what else would make me feel joyful, abundant, free, whatever it is, and then bringing more of that into your life as well. So that's sort of like the intention behind matching the energy or the vibration of the thing that you want is, looking at the emotional state. And I always say like feeling good is a good default, because a lot of times we think, well, I don't know what I would feel if I had that, or if I was there, or if I was already that person. And so in that case, default to just feeling good in general. And as you do, you'll start to notice more of like, oh, well, I think I would feel really joyful. And then you could create more of that. But in the beginning, it may just help to be intentional about feeling good in general. I mean, and that's what I did when I manifested the divorce. Like, I didn't know what I would feel because I didn't know that I was manifesting a divorce. I just knew I was manifesting a change in my relationship. So it was creating the internal state of believing I had the relationship I wanted, feeling the love that I desired to have, giving that to myself as much as possible. And as I did that, that's what ended up happening. That was the result of it. But the intention was just to feel good.
Right. So for people who, because I've heard a lot of people say this, like, I don't know how I would feel. I don't know how it would feel to, be that person. Right. So you're saying, okay, well, that kind of general state of happiness, is it like, would you suggest that somebody could just hold feelings of a time maybe that they were happy in the past, or everybody's had an experience, right? Like if a child was born, if you accomplished something at work, if you ran a mile or whatever, like you're really proud of yourself, just like holding those feelings, like, I don't know, 5 minutes, or like, how do you bring those emotions in when you're trying to actually manifest something like that?
Yeah. So you could visualize and remember something that happened previously where you're like, like you said, the birth of your child, that is probably a very happy memory for you. So you can definitely tap into the emotional state you had at a certain point in your life for sure. That's definitely a one way to do it. The other way is to really just look at right now in your current life, what makes you feel good. And again, maybe your life is at a place where you're making a big change or you're sort of at a pivot and you're transitioning to another time in your life. Maybe you're coming out of something or a situation and maybe everything doesn't feel that great, but there's got to be at least one little thing that you can tap into that would feel good. So like for me, it's my dog. Anytime I think about my dog, imagine my dog, like hold on to my dog, it just feels so good to me. And I could just hold my dog for like 5 minutes and just feel amazing, and just to remember how proud I am of this dog that I, first of all, used to be terrified of dogs. And then I got a dog and I raised him. I'm going to write a book about that one day, and just absolutely changed my life completely. So, it's really like looking at all the different things that you already have that could make you feel this way. And then just giving yourself permission to indulge in that for as long as you want to, right? It could be an entire day where you just take the whole day off and you go hiking because you love being outside and you love having the wind blowing and the sun on your face. And in doing that, you feel amazing. Or it could be 5 minutes, while you lock yourself in the bathroom, while your kids are running around the house and you're just in the morning and you lock yourself in the bathroom and you just spend 5 minutes, doing something for yourself that feels really good. It could just be something really simple like that. But any amount of time you can create that feel good state for yourself, it's going to make you magnetic to the things that you desire to have and to the person that you desire to be, because you're being a match to those things that you want. Like I was saying, feeling good is the point and the path.
Right. I love that. That is an amazing quote. I think that sounds like another book title for
right. Maybe. Yeah.
That is really cool. And that you said to give yourself permission to indulge, because so many of us, especially when we've been in a toxic relationship, we've not been able to do that because we have been so focused on putting other people before us, anticipating the needs of the abuser and things like that. So getting into habits, even just thought habits of in our day-to-day, not necessarily even doing things, but even just thinking about things in a different way can be super helpful, but very difficult for a lot of survivors of emotional abuse because it's just not something that we're programmed to do. And so it's about rewiring that and reprogramming that.
Yeah. So what helped me when I was starting to create that feeling good all the time thing, where it was like, I want it to be more intentional, was I would program into my phone 4 times a day where it would pop up a message that says like, feel good break, or something. I think it said feel good break. Mm-hmm. And when I would see that, the commitment that I made was when I see it, I have to stop what I'm doing and I have to feel good for at least a minute or two and just like really allow myself permission to feel good no matter what was going on at that moment. And just tap into that feel good feeling. And it might be, again, imagining something that you knew previously that felt good to you, or it could be something now. So like I said, I always just imagine my dog and it just makes me so happy and makes me feel so good. And then you just go about your day. Yeah. And it's like those little tiny moments where we think it's only 2 minutes, like it's not a big deal. Those add up. They add up and they overflow. And all the things I've read and learned about manifestation, but then even in my own experience, I've seen that little moments become the bigger moments. And so your 2 to 3 minutes a day of feeling good and having that positive thinking really can outweigh all the times you're worrying or feeling stuck in something kind of negative, because your positive emotions are more powerful than your negative ones. Yeah. And they're always going to be, and the feeling good state is always going to be more powerful than the not feeling good state.
Right. Yeah. That is really interesting because, when we are rewiring, I guess, and reprogramming, even just like you said, if you set your alarm for a few times a day to go off to do that, it could just be for 2 minutes. It could be for 3 minutes. It could be, a very short amount of time. But what's happening in that very short amount of time is we're actually changing the neural pathways in our brain. That becomes the default versus now all of a sudden, instead of having a negative outlook or, having these beliefs that are limiting or things that are holding us back from reaching our goals or getting what we want, now we have this kind of different automatic that we're training our mind to do over and over. And that sounds like what you did. So
yeah, exactly. And I was talking in the very beginning about my daily mindset practice. The anniversary of it is today. And that was something I did for 5 minutes a day when I first started. It was so simple. It was like 5 to 10 minutes maximum, because that's all I could handle. Like any more than that, and I would just get distracted and I couldn't hold the emotional state or any of that stuff. But in that 5 to 10 minutes that I was taking intentional time to do this, my life changed so rapidly over the course of that next year. And then it just continued on the more I continued with that practice. So it definitely does change your default to something that is more supportive of you having what you want and being who you want to be.
Right. That's really awesome. So I wanted to talk about something interesting that you wrote in your book. And it says, the good news is your subconscious can't tell whether something is true or not. It just accepts everything as truth. So why not choose to program in beliefs that will support you in having what you want and being who you want to be? Right. So I talk about this a lot, how the subconscious doesn't really know right from wrong, good or bad, doesn't know real from not real. It doesn't know if it's truth or if it's not truth. It just believes whatever you are telling it. So how has that been something for you that, because some people are like, they don't understand. Some people are like, how to getting behind the fact that your subconscious really doesn't know whether it's true or not. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So our subconscious, it's really the part of our brain that runs the show, right? It operates all of the functions in our body and makes sure our heart keeps beating and that we keep breathing and that all the things that we don't have to think about, because the subconscious handles all of that for us. Well, its other job is to basically be a quote unquote photocopier for whatever is in there. So whatever you saw, experienced, were taught, usually in your earlier years, so between like birth and age 7 is when most of your subconscious programming comes in. And then after that, you start to have the ability to consciously think things. And so then you can kind of decide, oh, this is right, this is wrong. But before that, you don't get that, right? It's whatever you're being taught or being told is what you believe, because you don't know any different. You don't realize that it's any different. So that's kind of the subconscious. And unless you intentionally do something to change that programming, it's just going to keep running the show and basically photocopying out into your life all of the same things that are in there. So if you've ever had the same experience, this is a common one that I think a lot of women will say, I date the same guy over and over again. Well, that's why, because your subconscious is looking for certain characteristics or traits of a person and thinking that this is the type of relationship that you want, because that's what was programmed in as like maybe something you saw growing up. Like, you know, my parents got divorced when I was very young. So for me, it was like, I didn't think that like you could be in a relationship for more than a certain amount of time before it had to end. And so I had a lot of like 2-year, 3-year relationships that were not bad, but then I just sort of had to end it because it was like, I just couldn't go past a certain point. I would just like find reasons to like get rid of people. Like, no, this isn't going to work. And it was like perfectly good relationships or perfectly good guys. Which, you know, maybe you could say, well, they weren't the right ones or whatever, which is probably true. But it was like at the time, there was nothing wrong with the relationship or there's nothing wrong with the person, but I just had this like need to just get rid of it and make it go away. So that's something I'm consciously working on now for myself, because that was a pattern that I had. So our subconscious is going to always repeat our patterns and whatever we have in there. And so as much as you can do work to reprogram what's in your subconscious, even like a tiny bit of things you do, like just pick one phrase that you're going to tell yourself over and over and over again all day long, but most especially during the times when your subconscious is the most active, which is going to be when you first wake up, like literally eyes open, haven't even processed that you're waking up now. That's when your subconscious is super active. Right before you go to sleep. So like you're in bed, you're doing your wind down activities, and then you're like going into that subconscious state. After a meditation is a really good one. And then another one that I like to say is when you're doing mindless activities that don't require you to think, like vacuuming your house, like you're in a subconscious state there because your subconscious has vacuumed so many times. You don't have to think about it, right? It's just going to do it automatically. And so that's a good time to also be reprogramming that thinking and that mindset. So, I would say choose one phrase and start with that. Something that feels good to you, that's simple, like I am very happy, or I am whatever, right? It could be anything. And as you continue to repeat that, your subconscious eventually gets the message, because subconscious reprogramming is all about repetition over a period of time. So the more that you can repeat something,
Yeah.
or it's an action that you're repeating. So like, that's how we get habits, right? Is that we repeat the same action over and over and over, and it just becomes a habit. And now you don't have to think about it, right? It's like a trigger to yourself. Like, oh, I'm just going to go do this thing now, because you subconsciously program that habit in.
Yeah.
So repetition over a period of time can make huge changes for yourself.
Yeah. And I talk to my clients a lot about how your subconscious sees in stories and images. It doesn't really process in ways like how we think about like writing or speaking verbally. It works more like a dream. So how you would envision how a dream would work. And so if you did have a limiting belief, like all relationships end after 10 years, because that's a subconscious thing that you had in your mind from the time you were very young, what we would do, or I would help them do is, they don't, like, most relationships don't end after 10 years, or some relationships don't end after 10 years, or not all relationships end after 10 years. And then we show our mind visuals of that, like real truths, real examples where we can say, well, my great grandparents were married for 30 years, or, my friends have been married for 15 years, and what else could be possible? What else could be true? Right? Because what happens is our subconscious gets on that repeat, that automatic, it drives 95% of everything that we do. So if we are not questioning those thoughts and we're not showing it other possibilities, it's just going to continue down that path. And a lot of times for people who have suffered from emotional abuse, there's a lot of programming and a lot of really toxic conditioning and things that have happened that go unquestioned. It goes checked. It just literally happens on repeat. And that's where the emotions come in and the pain, which then, as you know, creates the behaviors for people. Yeah. So I don't know. I find it really, really interesting that, we do have the power to change these things. It's just a matter of almost like coming outside of ourselves and looking down and seeing, ourselves as separate from our, I don't know, like if you could just literally project yourself out of your body and look at yourself, like, what am I thinking about right now? And what are these thoughts that are going through my mind? And are they actually true? Are these things really true? Because if they're not, let's question them and show our subconscious something different so that we can move forward to start healing and feel better. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you probably know Amanda Francis is a pretty well-known author and coach online. One thing she always says is any beliefs that don't feel good to me are a lie. Any beliefs that don't represent what I desire to have or who I desire to be are a lie. And I give myself permission to see them as that, which I always think is just really, really brilliant, because it's true, right? Anything that's been told to us that doesn't feel good, that isn't what we want, like, it is a lie, and you get to change it. You get to make it something else. Like, I grew up with the programming that I'm not good enough. And that was something that I still to this day contend with, but I've worked very hard to change that belief and to reprogram that thinking. And, it definitely still comes up now and then, but now I can see it as, oh, that's not true. It's like the pattern will still present itself, but I can have done enough work to know that I can say, oh no, that's not true, and choose something else instead. Yeah. So it's really just that. And also looking at your thoughts and your beliefs from a curiosity standpoint, as opposed to a judgmental standpoint, because definitely. I tend to be very hard on myself and tend to judge myself very harshly. And I'm sure a lot of people do that as well. And so it's be curious. Oh, why am I thinking that right now? Why did I believe that for so long? Versus, oh, I'm never going to change this. I just been believing this my whole life. So it's just never going to change. It's different when you look at it with that curiosity and just questioning it and not trying to see it as good or bad, but just, this is how it is. And now I get to decide something else. Yeah, I completely agree, because we can't really heal when we're in judgment of ourselves, and if we were looking at someone else, like a loved one, a friend, a sister, a mother who was having those same feelings and thoughts, we wouldn't be judging them. We'd be saying, no, it's not you, it's your programming, or it's not you, it's just how you've been, in these thought habits for your whole life. We wouldn't be judging them. So we can't be judging ourselves, because we can't heal when we're in constant judgment of ourselves. We can't move forward and embrace that vision that we want to be of who we desire and who we crave.
if we're constantly judging ourselves. And so we need to give that same grace to ourselves that we give to other people. At least that's what I think we should do.
Yeah, no, completely. That's actually something I worked on with the therapist I mentioned over the last year, because it was like, that was from our very first meeting. She was like, you are so hard on yourself. Like, it's insane how hard on yourself you are, which I never really noticed, because I was just like, this is how I am. I hold myself to a high standard and I expect more out of myself. But it's like, sometimes you just need to give yourself grace. I was programmed to feel this way. I was programmed to think this way. And this is not supporting me and being who I want to be and having what I want to have. So I get to look at it with curiosity. I get to let it go and change it. And I get to have grace the entire time, not judgment.
Right. Yeah. I had a client the other day who was having that same sort of issue, and she was judging herself because she said, I know how the brain works now. I know how the subconscious is. And I'm having these thoughts, and I shouldn't be having these thoughts. Yeah. Right. So she was even judging herself because she was having the thoughts, knowing that she's already in awareness of how the brain works. Yeah. And so what I mentioned to her was, if you programmed an alarm clock to go off at 3 a.m. every day, right? You put that programming in there. That's what it's supposed to do. When the alarm clock goes off at 3 a.m., you don't get mad at the alarm clock. You don't judge the alarm clock. It's doing its job. It's doing what it was supposed to do, what it's been programmed to do. And that's what you're doing too. So all we have to do is get in there and shift that programming so that you don't have to keep going down these same painful pathways and beating yourself up and judging yourself. It's just your programming.
And it takes time, like that's the other thing, is we have to give ourselves the grace of, it takes time to change something that's been programmed in your subconscious, especially considering how long it could have been in there, So like, it's easier to change the programming of a 10-year-old than it is to change it of a 50-year-old, because they've been thinking a certain way and had certain beliefs for so much longer. It's not that you can't change it. Of course you can, but it just will take more time because it's been so ingrained in there for such a long time that it's first getting the awareness that it's even happening. And then once you have the awareness, so like what you're saying with your client, she has the awareness. That is the first step. Because if you have the awareness, you can make the changes with intention. When you're not aware, it's just autopilot, right? You're just operating without even knowing that this is a pattern or this is something that's working against you.
Exactly. And what was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to ask you about the thing you put in your TikTok video about fast forwarding to the end, because
I love that exercise.
I think this is a good segue, because fast forwarding to the end, and the end is, the end of your life, right? But I want you to explain this in your own words, because I found this really interesting and I thought it would be really helpful for people to hear.
Yeah. So this is an exercise I came up with I was kind of like, I'd kind of come up with it before, but I never actually sat down to do the exercise until January of 2021. And I was like, okay, fast forward to the end. And what that means is fast forward to the end of your life. It's the very last day. You're literally about to take your last breath, and you're looking back on everything you experienced, created, lived, etc., but only from the place of being where you are right now and having continued forward on that same path. So like, you didn't make any changes. Nothing was any different than how it is right now. Are you happy with what you're seeing? And if you are, that's great. That means you're aligned, you're in the aligned path, and you should keep going. And if you're not happy, well, what's missing? What did you expect to see that's not there? And when I did this exercise, what I saw was a coaching business that made millions of dollars, that helped millions of people, that was super successful, that was an amazing experience and journey. But what I didn't see was what I always knew it was meant to be about for me, which was seeing my stories turned into movies, having tons of books out there, being a full-time author. Like, that was the thing I didn't see, because from the path that I was on, my main focus was my coaching business, was helping other people, but it wasn't doing the things I knew I needed to do for me. And so in that moment, I realized my whole life felt like a waste, because it felt like, well, and meaning like if I was at the end of it, it felt like a waste, because it felt like I didn't do what I came here to do. And that was very heartbreaking, but it was also very eye-opening, because I realized it's time to make a change. And so in January of that year, I decided to shut down my coaching business pretty much for the most part. Now, I'll still do it, like I said, here and there. It just depends on the situation. But as a focus that I had, I shut it down. I wasn't focusing on it anymore. It was no longer going to be the main thing I spent my time doing. And I made the decision to go all in on being an author. And that's when I wrote F the How, which started at the beginning of that year, and it came out in June of that year. So took a while to kind of get it all done and everything. But it was that process of like, I'm becoming a full-time author. This is who I am now. This is what my focus is. Like, yes, I'll still do coaching on the side, right? It was more like my coaching business was the main focus and my being an author was like this side hustle, but it needed to be the other way. It needed to be the author thing is the main thing I do. And then whatever comes off of that is okay. Like, it's great. I can do that too, but it's really knowing that the foundation of everything I'm doing is being an author, is being a writer, because that's at the end of the day what I know I'm meant to do. I've known since I was very young. Age 11, I knew I was going to write fictional stories and all that. So it was just kind of an eye-opening exercise that allowed me to make a big change in my life. So now, fast forward to a year plus later, and I am a full-time author. This is what I do. It's my main focus every day. I write. I'm always working on new books, fiction and nonfiction. Last year, I put out, like I said, F the How plus a novella that I wrote. This year, I put out Quantum Leap Your Life, and I've got possibly another nonfiction book in mind and one fiction book as well. So I just sort of made that switch, and it just made everything a lot better because now I know I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And if I did the exercise again and fast forwarded to the end, I'm going to see hundreds of books. I'm going to see millions of people who've read my books, whose lives have been changed by the words that I've written. And I might also see a coaching business, and I might also see other things, but I'm seeing what I want to see now. And that made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, that gives you so much clarity, whereas some people are just aimlessly wandering around their lives without a lot of clarity or purpose. So when you do this kind of exercise, are you writing it down? Are you doing it in a meditative state? Like how like physically or mentally are you doing it?
I mean, you could do it either way. So I was kind of doing a combination of like kind of imagining it and then writing out like, well, if I was there, what am I seeing? And writing out what I'm seeing. And then, well, is that what I want to be seeing? Or is there something missing? Is there something else and then of course I was like, yeah, where's the movies? Where are the books that you knew you were going to write? Like, where's all that? I don't see it. And so it was like, okay, this was not right. This is the wrong path. Like, and I had known for a while that was kind of where I needed to head, but I just hadn't had the bravery, I guess, to change it because my coaching business had made me so much money and I was successful. And it felt like, well, how can I just give this up? But there was no way that I was ever going to be able to do being a full-time author and have a full-time coaching business where that was my focus. And so it was like, it just needs to switch and the author thing needs to be my focus. And if I do the coaching thing, that's cool. But if I don't, then that's also cool. Right. Because did not come to this planet to be a coach. And that's not what I came here to do. Right. That was always supposed to be the byproduct of being the author that I came here to be, And so it was like, once I realized I'd put the cart before the horse, I started to realize I had to backtrack a little bit. I had to stop what I was doing, shut everything down temporarily so that I could get back on the path I knew that I wanted to be on. And like I said, now I'm at a place where I am that author. I do have feeling like the books I'm meant to be writing are being written and they're getting out there. And so in that case, I can start to add additional things in like more coaching or whatever, because I know now that I have the foundation set and I don't have to worry about suddenly getting overtaken again by the things that I know are not the thing, right? Because that's the shiny object syndrome, right? We chase the shiny object and not do the thing we know we're meant to do. So that was kind of, and actually there's a book, I always forget which book it is, but Stephen Pressfield, I believe it's a Stephen Pressfield book, maybe The Art of War. No, The War of Art, excuse me, backwards, The War of Art. But basically he talks about the idea of a shadow career. So a lot of times we'll create a shadow career for ourselves. So it's something that's shadowing what we actually want to be doing. So like I was a book editor and a book coach for almost a decade, but I wasn't writing enough of my own books. So it was like I had created a shadow career helping other people write books, but I wasn't writing my own books as much as I knew that I wanted to be. So the fear was around being the author. And so it was easier to create the shadow career because I knew I could help authors and I knew I could help people. And so that's what I was doing. And yeah, it felt great and I felt successful at it, but I wasn't successful at my own art because I wasn't allowing myself permission to actually do it. And so now it's opposite, right? So now I feel really good with like, I am being the author I know I'm meant to be, and I'm doing my art and everything else comes with that and is a byproduct of that. But now the horse is actually running the cart as opposed to,
Well, and I think about that in terms of people who are healing, and if they did this exercise and they, fast forwarded to the end, and if it wasn't necessarily about career, but if it was about their journey, like what they're meant to do and their healing and the level that they want to reach in their life. And a lot of times people do the same thing where I don't want to call it a shadow career, but like a shadow something, like
like a shadow life, basically.
A life. Yeah. Because you might end up like reading all the books about healing and watching all the videos about it and doing things that don't necessarily do the inner work to help you
heal yourself,
move from one place to the next, or become that vision that you set out to create for yourself. Yep. And so I really, really love that exercise, because I think that can bring people so much clarity. I have never done it. My situation's a little different from yours, because when I started, I started to write my book because I wanted people to know about abuse, and I wanted them to understand that they weren't alone and that this was not something they had to struggle with by themselves. I wanted to give people hope and inspiration. And I thought that was the end. Like, I thought I was going to write this book. People were going to like it. They were going to hopefully get inspired and be hopeful and, raise awareness. Right. And I thought that was like my life's purpose and my mission. And I was like, done, done. And then something happened, and I was meditating one day, and I got this voice that I heard, my inner voice or whatever, from the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that said, it was a laugh. It was a literal laugh. And it was like, we are not done with you yet. And I was like, what? And then this coaching business came to be. And that was actually what I believe to be my true calling. Like, the book was just the segue. The book was the beginning.
That's the starting point.
Mm-hmm. And the coaching was really what my life was meant to do, to help people in that way. So it's interesting. We're all on different paths, and we all have different things that we're trying to do and trying to achieve and that we're meant to do. But I love that exercise so much, because it really, I'm going to do it too. I'm a little scared.
It gives you clarity. Yeah. That's why I didn't do it for so long, because it was like, I was scared. Like, do I want to see what I'm going to be looking back at? And when I finally made myself do it, it was just like, it was freeing, because I felt like, okay, now I know what to do. Now I know what I knew the actions I had to take immediately. Like, I just knew. It was clear. The other thing is, you don't have to, if that's too morbid or too just, you don't have to fast forward to the end of your life. You could fast forward to when you're that version of yourself.
Okay.
And look back and say, well, am I happy with who I am now? Or even fast forward just 10 years or 20 years. It doesn't have to be,
you can go as far as you want.
Exactly. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of clarity in the last moment, last breath type looking back, because then you're like, there's nothing else I can do. I can't change anything. I can't do anything. Like, if I don't make the change now, that's where I'm going to end up.
Yeah. And I agree. And I like to do that for my clients too. A lot of questions that I ask would be like, if you fast forward into the future, what would you be believing about yourself? Like, what would the thoughts be that you would be having if in 10 years you were that healed version of yourself, or you were that person that you envisioned? What would you be believing? And it's a really revealing question, because that tells you what you're not believing about yourself right now. Like, so if you say, oh, if I fast forward in 10 years, I believe I'd be really successful. That means you're believing that you're not successful. Well, then you got to start questioning your thoughts. Well, in what ways are you successful? Because you're not a complete failure, right?
Of course.
You couldn't be a complete failure. And failure is really just sort of a way that we learn. So it's just a matter of getting into your mind, getting into your subconscious, starting to think about things differently, starting to reframe those thoughts, use the manifestation to get what you want, to create that vision of yourself, and to become the truest version of really who we all want to be. And I think that, everybody has a desire for themselves. Everybody wants something. I also think, and I may have read this in your book too, to be really in gratitude about where we are now, because it's not all about just what do I want in the future, but also holding a lot of gratitude for where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, because when you get to the future, it's just going to feel like now.
Exactly.
Right. Because the future isn't a real thing. It's always just now. It's now.
Yeah. So we have to maintain that level of gratitude as well in order to feel present in the present moment and be happy with the things that we have, because like you said, future is just like an imagination. I
I know sometimes it can be hard to be grateful for certain things where you're like, I have no money in my bank account, or I just came out of this horrible relationship, like, and now I have nothing. Like, I feel, how can I be grateful for that? And so I would always look for, well, what did I learn from all of this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Or what am I now doing, or what changes am I now making because of these things? And you can be grateful for that, right? You can be grateful. Like, I'm always grateful, I always say, for how much I know, right? How much I've learned over the last however many years. So almost 39 years of my life. I'm like, um, I'm so grateful for everything I know now, because even though I know I'm not doing all the things yet that I want to be, or I'm not making all the changes that I want to be making, I know what those are, right? And I know how to make the changes, and I know what I need to do to get the results. So it's like, I'm so grateful for everything that I know and have learned and experienced, because I've been so willing to open myself up to potentially failing at something, or potentially not having it work out the way I wanted it to. But in doing that, have learned so much, right? And have grown so much and expanded so much. So a lot of times I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah.
And that in
really
itself
important.
can help.
Yeah, that's really important, because it is sometimes hard for people when you're experiencing really, traumatic or difficult situations in your life.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to just convince myself to be happy here? Well, maybe
Yeah.
looking for the benefit, or looking for the lesson or the learning or something like that, to hold that gratitude in that moment. So yeah, that's really, really great wisdom. Thank you. All right. So was there anything else that you wanted to share before I ask you a couple final questions?
Well, I mean, there's probably so many things. So maybe
I
ask
know,
the
we can
questions, and
probably do
then
a whole new
I'm like, I could probably just keep going forever. Um, so yeah, maybe ask the questions, and then if
yeah,
there's anything
okay.
else, I'll see.
Okay. So the one thing I want to know, and I ask all of my guests this question: tell us something about you that not a lot of people know.
Okay, let's see. Well, so a lot of people probably know that I'm multi-passionate and love to learn things and all of that. That's actually one part of my human design, is that I'm meant to like indulge in topics and learn everything about them. But I actually have a certification as a holistic health coach.
Wow.
I've never used it as that. I actually did it for myself because I, at the time, was experiencing a lot of health issues and didn't know why. And the doctors that I went to were just wanting to give me pills. And I was like, this is not happening. So I decided to get a certification in health coaching, learn about how health works and how I can heal my body and all these things. And in doing that, I actually found out I had food allergies, which changed my life. And I've been gluten-free for almost 12 years now. And it completely changed my life. It changed my health, like everything. And so, yeah, so I never used it as like, I never coached other people in health or anything like that. But I have that as just something that I've kind of done for myself. So
yeah, that's amazing. Well, it worked out because it helped you, and that was,
yeah. And I mean, I have shared stuff here and there with people, and like written about it a little bit, but I've never actually, like, I'm not a health coach. I don't, that's not what I see myself doing. It was more just, and actually I took the stuff I learned about coaching, about health, and applied it to books at the time. So that's kind of what helped me to become a book coach, and all of that was like, oh, I have this knowledge now how to do this. But yeah, but it was really more about just healing my own health issues and having that whole journey. So yeah, but not a lot of people know that about me.
Well, I love that, because this is what it's all about, is healing ourselves, and our physical bodies, our emotional, spiritual bodies, and I love all of that. So thanks for sharing that. So
yeah, and really, actually, in healing the physical body, a lot of times you heal some mindset stuff as well. Like, I had a lot of anxiety at the time, and I didn't know that it was happening because of my gluten allergy. I was actually getting anxiety from it. So in removing the gluten, a lot of the anxiety went away. And that was really awesome too, because it was like, oh, okay, yeah. So that made a huge difference. So I think sometimes it's both, right? It's healing the body and the mind.
Yeah, because it's all connected. And there's even, there's so many studies out there, and there's books and things about like the biology of belief by Bruce Lipton. I mean, it talks all about how your body and mind is so connected. And if you have, thoughts and beliefs and negativity and all that stuff stored up in your body, it can manifest in physical ways too. So it can be both.
Absolutely.
It could be the food that you're eating is causing your stress and anxiety. The stress and anxiety could be causing some other physical ailments in your body. So it's all one, big conglomerate that we have to look at as, this is our whole body and our whole mind. I mean, I know that's that mind, body, spirit thing, but it's true. It's all connected, and it's important to recognize that, because if we just focus on one thing, then other things are going to be neglected, and it's not going to be that, well-oiled machine that we really need for,
to live and to thrive, and also to do what we came here to do, whatever that is for you,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your infinite wisdom and information with us. Where can our listeners find you, your books, your social media accounts, and let us know so that I can share with them?
So my website is jenniferblanchard.net, and that will take you to all my books, all my digital courses, social media, that kind of thing. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm not super active on Instagram, but I'm hopefully going to start doing that soon. I'm most active on Facebook and my personal Facebook page, and then TikTok. So TikTok, I'm at F the How, but F is spelled out. And you can find my books on Amazon. So if you just put my name in the search bar, a bunch of them will come up. Or you can go to dreamliferbust.com, and that will take you to all my Amazon books.
Okay, great. And I'm going to have all of that information in the show notes below. So if you are interested in reaching out to Jennifer, getting in touch with her, reading her books, you can get that information in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here. And
absolutely.
I look forward to reading some more of your books and connecting with you again in the future. Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in